And then Archbishop Lefebvre retained a few other things, like the prayer for the Jews in Good Friday Mass. The Jews have a right that we pray for them. You cannot leave out the word perfides, the perfidious Jews. Perfidious means they go around the faith, they take away the faith, they don't have the faith. It doesn't mean they're bad, they're all damned to hell. It doesn't mean they're crooks, it doesn't mean they are gangsters, it doesn't mean they're bad people, evil people. No, they're just perfidious. They do not accept the faith. Even though they were the chosen people, they do not accept the faith. That's a fact. It's a historical fact. As long as they do not convert, they do not accept the faith. So you have to pray for them. They are the perfidious Jews. We have to pray for them. And I want to pray for them. And Archbishop Lefebvre decided he was going to do it too, no matter what John the 23rd said in his ecumenical activities. Why did Archbishop Lefebvre accept all the rest of the 1962 Mass? Well, as I said before, the law of self-defense is very strict. I do not operate under the law of self-defense. I just say the Mass of all times. I do not defend it. I attack if anybody doesn't like it. I do not defend myself. I don't have to. I would have to defend myself in front of the Pope, nobody else, and my bishop, nobody else. I reject the new Mass entirely. I put it where it belongs, the trash can, and I reject the 1962 rite for the simple reasons that I just explained. But I do not put it in the trash can, and I do not judge priests or societies and groups who use the 1962 rite, because they are, as a group, not as individuals, as a group, they are under the law of self-defense. When in 1988 Archbishop Lefebvre decided to consecrate bishops, I've said this on my other tape, he did so because if he had not consecrated bishops, there would be no bishop available nowadays to turn young people who reject Vatican II, as you must, and who reject the new Mass, as you must. There would be no priest left to ordain them. And that is unacceptable as a situation. That is exactly the situation of emergency in which a bishop has to react. He did not appoint 4 ordinaries of a diocese. That would have been schism. He did not give jurisdiction to them. He did not appoint Bishop Williamson as the Bishop of the United States or as the new Archbishop of New York. He consecrated, he did not appoint him at all. He just consecrated him so that he would be able to ordain priests. Period. Period. This is the old term of auxiliary bishop. In German, the auxiliary bishop is called Weihbischof, the bishop who ordains, the bishop who helps the actual bishop of the place to ordain priests. In the old days, you had many vocations, not like now. The former Cardinal Archbishop, Vicar of Rome, because the Bishop of Rome is the Pope, Vicar of Rome, Cardinal Traglia, who was a saint, ordained 4,000 priests in his life. He had 4,000 children, generated with his hands. He ordained 4,000 priests. Now you can imagine that the bishop in the old days needed people to help him with confirmation and ordination. And that's all Archbishop Lefebvre wanted. And even if he had wanted more, he would not have been allowed to do it. And he would have never done it the way I know him. He operated under the law of self-defense. Now, the law of self-defense is very strict in Catholic moral theology. You are not allowed to go beyond the necessary means. You're not allowed to go beyond the means that are necessary to get rid of the actual situation against which you have to defend yourself. If a bum in the street threatens me with words, I'm not allowed to shoot him. Of course not. I talk back. I do. But I'm not allowed to shoot him. The law of self-defense does not allow me to shoot him yet. If he draws a knife, I'll shoot him. But not before that. And there's another law of self-defense. In self-defense, you have to act right now. If I see that a girl is going to be raped on the other side of the street, I cannot say, sorry honey, gotta hit the supermarket first, I'll be back. I have to help right now. When Archbishop Lefebvre realized that he had to consecrate bishops because he might die at any moment, he had to act right now. immediately. He obeyed that law of self-defense. And very much to my sorrow, but necessarily, he obeyed the law of self-defense by saying the 1962 Missal is the last edition of the Roman Missal. As a matter of fact, it was. It's the last edition of the Roman Missal that is somewhat acceptable. He didn't say, I like it. He didn't say, I'm happy with the changes of John the 23rd and Pius the 12th. Maybe he was, I don't care. He didn't say it. He didn't say, I celebrate, and you will, to his priests, and you will celebrate according to the 1962 Missal because I like it so much. That's no point of view for a priest. I do not, of course, I love the Roman Missal, but the reason why I celebrate the 1949 Missal is not because I like it, but because I think that is what I have to do. And Archbishop Lefebvre, he did not say the 1962 rite was good. He did not say it was nice of John the 23rd to have done this. He didn't say that he fully approved of Pius the 12th changes. He never commented on that, except in private, which I won't quote. He decided to use it because it was the last acceptable version. Why? In the 1962 rite, the 1962 Missal is the last Missal with the following characteristics. First of all, it's the last one where you find all the documents, starting with Quo Primum. Quo Primum by Pius V, and I never memorized these documents. A document from Pope Urban VIII, and there was one from Clement VIII, and of course there was the document of St. Pius X, and there was the document of John the 23rd. So in all these documents, they show you the continuity of the Missal. The popes would have never dared to leave Quo Primum out because, contrary to what the Fraternity of St. Peter teaches, the popes knew they were bound to Quo Primum. If they had not felt bound to Quo Primum, why bother and leave Quo Primum in the Missal? You replace Quo Primum with a new decree. The popes did that everywhere else in canon law. If the Pope comes up with a new code of canon law, he doesn't quote his predecessor. He may mention him, but you will not find in the code of canon law that has been issued under Benedict XV and that was ordered to be written by Pius X, you will not find the introductions by the Pope's predecessors to St. Pius X in the old Corpus Juris Canonici. You will not find them. You will only find the decree of Benedict XV publishing this in the name of St. Pius X. That's all. Period. No more needed. It's canon law. It's positive law. It's a law which does not bind the successors, except in things that are unchangeable. But with Mass, it is the popes who interpret Quo Primum as something binding, just by the fact that no pope until Paul VI dared to leave out Quo Primum, or any one of the documents of his predecessors, which is the most unusual thing in church history. It's the only example, as a matter of fact, in all of church history, that all of the documents of all the popes touching the book would be found in the very same book. It's the only example in church history. So the popes, until John the 23rd included, thought they could not abolish Quo Primum and could not go against it. Now, John the 23rd was not exactly what you call an overly scrupulous person, right? Why would he leave Quo Primum and all the other decrees of his predecessors in the Missal if he thought that Quo Primum was not binding for him? Well, of course he thought Quo Primum bound him too. He just stepped a little bit too far, like Pius XII did, in his changes. But again, I think that. I'm not the Pope. The final judgment on the Missal of 1962 will be pronounced by a future Pope, not by Dr. Hesse or anybody else, as a matter of fact. Archbishop Lefebvre, this is one of them, I'll come back to the characteristics. This is one of the characteristics of the old Missal. There's another one. Until 1962, generally speaking, with the exception of Holy Week changed round, the priest had to say the Judica Mei at the beginning of Mass and the last Gospel at the end of Mass. In 1965, Paul VI issued a new Roman Missal without the Judica Mei and without the last Gospel. In 1967, he reissued another one And now you had almost everything in the vernacular. And then in 1969, he came up with the crime of the century, the new missile. So you can see that 1962 is certainly, despite all the changes that I don't like and don't accept, in continuity with the Mass of Pius V. It is borderline, if you ask me, it is borderline. And I think it went too far. But Archbishop Lefebvre had no right for that decision. He had to act according to the law of self-defense. Do not go beyond what is necessary to remedy the situation. That's the whole point. Archbishop Lefebvre did not think that he had the authority to judge which version of the missal to use. Now, you see, when I reject the reforms of Pius XII, I submit myself to a certain risk. And I admit this publicly. Because I pronounce a judgment, even though I do not extend the judgment to anybody else, I pronounce a judgment on something that will eventually have to be judged by the Pope. Now, generally speaking, when I discuss this question with members of the Society of St. Pius X, generally speaking, they acknowledge my right in rejecting the reforms of Holy Week and 62 because I am not bound to the law of self-defense. I may indeed say, hey, wait a second, you went too far. And God will judge me for what I do, not men, and at the moment, no Pope. But if you are strictly under the law of self-defense, you cannot do that. Because then you open the doors to new judgments, to further modifications, to further modifications, to further modifications, to the point that now we have people running around talking about the Mass of Pius V and saying St. Pius X was not St. Pius X, but Antipope Pius X, because Antipope Pius X changed the breviary around, which was against the will of Pius V. Well, soon they'll be back at St. Peter. And this is what happens. If you're not very, very, very circumspect and very, very careful with your judgments, first you will say, okay, the reform of Pius XII, unacceptable. Then you go further in your studies, and you see St. Pius X change things. Unacceptable. Pius X was an anti-pope. Then you go back, you will find out Urban VIII changed something. Oh, he was an anti-pope too. Then you go back to Pius V and you say, oh, where's the old sequence of St. Augustine? It was a beautiful sequence on the feast day of St. Augustine. God forgive me, I still use it. But there was a beautiful sequence on that day. Where's the old preface of St. Augustine? Where's the beautiful preface of St. Dominic? So many things lost over the centuries. Yeah, and by the time they're back at St. Peter's, they won't have anything. See, this is the point. Archbishop Lefebvre did not accept the 1962 rite because it was beautiful, but because the next one after that was definitely unacceptable. That's the whole point. And I reject people and I resist people who think that they are the judges of all these things. Do you think Archbishop Lefebvre was an idiot? A man who didn't know what he was doing? A man who had never studied theology or liturgy? He pondered over his decision. He was not the man, he proved this, as the only bishop so far, except for Bishop Castro Mayer, God bless him. He proved that he was thinking before he decided. He has given ample proof of that. He was a very learned theologian. He was a very holy bishop. And as much as I dislike the 1962 rite, I have no right whatsoever to criticize priests who use it.